Okay, hi everyone, this is Comanderjonas speaking, and today I'm going to be doing a little tutorial for my DeviantArt page, which involves learning you guys how to make pictures that kind of looks like this. Essentially, how do you do this kind of thing where you cut someone in half vertically? And I'm going to be showing you guys how you do it, basically how I do it. So let's get started, shall we? So what you need is a layer-based photo editor. Now I'm using Photoshop Elements, but it doesn't have to be Photoshop. You just have to have one that has layer-based editing, so you can switch between layers. Now this is important later as we're going to be going a bit over. But I'm going to be showing you guys two different techniques on how you do this. Now this is going to be, we're going to start off by getting ourselves our now what you're going to need, let me rephrase this. What you're going to need to do in Garry's mod is you need to take two pictures. The first one is the background. What does your character look like and exactly who's doing the cutting, so to say. In this case it's going to be Live Thief. Now if we go, and then you need to take another picture with his unfortunate victim, which in this case is going to be a blue spy, and place it on a green screen. Now, I'm not going to show you how to make a green screen in this video, but I might do that later. So, what you need to do is, you need to take this, you need to take the spy, and now add that as a second layer here. And what you need to do now is you need to get rid of the green screen. I just used the magic wand tool for that. It takes a bit of fiddling around, so I'm going to put a work a bit on that, and I'll return to you guys a bit later. Okay, I'm back now, and what I've done is I've just removed the green screen, so now we're going to start the actual cutting process. Now, this is going to be relatively easy to do, but it just takes a lot of time, just so you know. What you need to do is you need to select a selection tool. I'm just taking the lasso, and now I'm going to make a cut. But first, there's a little tip. Reduce the opacity of the spy so you know where to cut. Now what I do now is I now do a vertical line down like this, and until I reach just around where the blade is. Then I go out here and now encircle like that. Now I take and copy that. Now I add a new layer, and now I paste it. And now I got myself the first layer. Now what I need to do now is to take and get this entire spy to turn a little bit. So I turn him over just slightly, like this, and what I do, and just like that. And what I do now is I simply take and do this entire process again, where I now take another picture, or going to take another piece of the spy, like this, and this time I cut it, and then add it as a second layer, as another layer. And the reason I do this is to get a little bit more curve on the picture, like this. So it looks like he's curving a bit over. This is just to help adding some depth to the picture, as if the spy is moving a bit outwards in sort of a soft V shape. So what we're going to do next is we're going to be doing, now we're going to take and do the same thing to his head, like this. And you can basically do this exactly the amount of times that you prefer. And the principle is exactly the same. How many times you do this is completely up to you. How many times you want to do it, or how many times you feel it's necessary to do it. But I just do it like so. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do the same thing for the other half of the spy. But this is going to take a little bit longer, so I'm going to... Okay, so I've been doing a little work here on the spy, and now he is in two pieces. But before we continue, there's just one thing I want to mention really quickly, and that is we also need his legs, the basic place of where he's assembled. I'm just gonna turn this into another layer, like so, and make sure it's lined up with the ghosted spy. The reason for the ghosted spy being there is to make it easier to have a reference, by the way, in case you were wondering. And now we take this and move it a bit around so I can get into the place I like. This looks pretty good. I might need a bit more curve on this, so If you just give me a second. Yeah, this is looking more like it. Just need to move his arm a bit further, like so. Now, you're probably wondering why that this will be nice, because there's gonna be all these holes sort of between each of the cuts, like these tiny little areas here. You're gonna ask yourself, well, those are gonna be there. Aren't people gonna see that? Well, no, not really, because this is where the effects we're gonna add come in one effect specifically, which is blood and gore. Now, how I do blood and gore basically in most of my pics is I take the paint tool and I take a color red, and let's just get a separate layer for this. And now I add this. Now I add a blood line along the edge of his clothes, essentially, like so. I'm gonna go all the way. Let's go all the way to the top. It's a little bit far there, and now I move it down so it is below, like so. Now I'm gonna do a duplication of this layer just in case, and now I'm gonna take the smudge tool, and now I'm basically just gonna smudge it out like so, and in that way create a blood effect. And this is once again gonna take a while, so on the blood work, essentially, here trying to make the spy look a bit gory. I'm still gonna be doing a little bit of fiddling around with the blood effects to make them look a bit more spectacular, but what I'm gonna be doing now is I'm gonna be unifying some of these spy parts, and the reason for that is I need to make sure that what I need to do is I need to make sure these are in one piece once again. And this is because I have a little extra thing I need to do. Let's see, it's this one, these three. Let's see, merge layers. It's also going to make it a little bit easier to get around with blood and gore and such. I mean, it can get a bit confusing sometimes. So, this here is a optimal effect that I sometimes do, and that is to do a bit of motion blur. And what I do is essentially I go in here and add just a little bit of motion blur, so it looks like he's moving a little bit, and then I just make sure it's in the correct direction. Let's see, there should be good. And now I do the same thing over here. I should probably be a little different there. Let's see, motion blur, and a bit there. This is looking good. And that's it. I mean, a bit of merging there on these two layers. This is gonna make things a little bit better. And we're basically going for it. I've been a bit too aggressive here. As I've said before, this takes a lot of fiddling around. You just have to basically be patient and try to do it until you get something that you generally like and approve of. Like so. I'm liking this so far. I'm gonna do a little bit more fiddling with the blood, so I'll see you shortly. Okay, so before we end this, I have a couple of extra little ideas you guys can possibly use, and that is a little trick I know here, and that is to mess with the layer styles. And this is something you can do in Photoshop. I don't know, I think you can also do it in the regular Photoshop. This is just Photoshop elements. That's to use the drop shadow. Now, this one is a little interesting, because what you can do with this is you can basically create this, this darker effect and then put it in the background. Like so, essentially. I mean, like this. Yeah, that's good. And we're gonna mess a bit around with size and distance and shape. This is basically just to get a little bit more of an effect to it. Let's try a bit of beveling. Ah, that's not so good. Yeah, this is better. This is just to add a little bit of extra effect. Now, one effect that I want to show you really quickly, one that's really easy to do, is to do a particle effect. And that is to basically do a lot of these tiny red dots. Now, so far this doesn't look very impressive, but we're now going to use another filter for this, and that I'm going to show you in just a second. Just gotta fix things up a bit, like so. Now we're gonna do a Gaussian blur, and basically this will create a, you can use this to create a thin mist of fire, or sorry, of blood, to create a little bit of extra effect on this entire thing, like so. And yeah, this is starting to look like something. And this is basically how you basically cut someone in half with the blood. So I'll see you shortly. In just a minute. But of course, let's do the good old-fashioned thing before I finish my picks. The last thing I always do is to make my little watermark. Just gonna size things up a bit and find a nice place to put it. Right there. And yeah, so this is it essentially. Just gonna do a little save. And that's it essentially. I'm gonna show you another technique in just a moment. Hey everyone, this is Comanderjonas again, and now we're going to be doing a second version of how to cut someone in half vertically, or in any direction that you really please. But I just want to mention really quickly that this is a method I don't have much experience with. It was suggested by Hero Wolf mod from DeviantArt, but let's get started. This technique is a little different. It involves around having 3 pictures. One where our character is standing like this, and then one where we have our guy, the guy who's supposed to be cut, tilted over slightly and tilted over in the opposite direction. And the reason for this angle is because I want to try and do it from this angle, but I don't have much experience with this particular version. But it is a little similar to the previous one. What you do is essentially you just create this overlay, and then you just create this as an overlay, and then what you do is you start removing the pieces. You then start removing a little bit from this side, so it looks like this guy has been cut in half. It's a little different than what I usually do, but I mean, this is also again my first time at trying this particular technique, so let's try it out. Essentially, I remove a little bit of him from this side, so it looks like he's been cut in half, like so, and I then do the same thing from here instead, like so, and I kind of like this, and now like before, now I basically just add blood effects. Let's increase the opacity here and just remove this one. And what I now do is I do, like before, I just do a bit of blood effect on top of that, like so. But I mean, this here is just an alternative version that was suggested. I haven't really used it that much, but still, I mean, it's possible you can use this. Like so. So that's essentially it. I mean, now you can, like before, start messing a little bit with layer merging and doing all kinds of things that you believe will help to suit your specific needs. I mean, you can do it in any way you please, but personally, I prefer the other method because it's the one I have the most experience with. But this is an alternative method of cutting someone in half vertically. Like so. Well, thanks for listening, guys, and I hope this tutorial has helped you to understand a little bit about how I do my pictures. And if you like this tutorial, please give it a thumbs up and share it with other people. If you want to try out these techniques, then go ahead. I won't judge you or anything. But thanks for watching anyway.